Good evening and welcome to our latest Exeter Libraries in Conversation. And this evening I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by three wonderful authors, Millie Johnson, Nicola May and Kim Nash. So thank you to Kim and Annabelle at EdPR for organising this event this evening. These events are free, but if you'd like to give a donation to Libraries Unlimited, which is a charity that runs the 54 libraries in Devon and Torbay, there is a link in the chat. And we're also posting to over 30 libraries across Devon and Torbay this evening. So hello to everybody else watching at the other libraries. And if you'd like to ask a question, if you pop in the chat, I will ask the ladies. So before we begin, I'll introduce everybody. So firstly, we have the lovely Millie. Millie is an international novelist, a poet, an after-dinner speaker, professional joke writer, script writer, columnist, cruise correspondent, short writer, story writer, and winner, and I didn't know this, of Come Dine With Me, which I'm really impressed with.
A claim to fame.
She comes from Barnsley, where she's lived all of her life, apart from, and this is the bit that's really exciting, 4 years when she was at Exeter University doing drama and education at St Luke's, which is still there, opposite Waitrose now, which used to be opposite the maternity hospital in Exeter, but it's now Waitrose.
We went back a couple of years ago, and I thought it just shows you how posh a university is when you've got Waitrose opposite, you know.
Yeah.
Nottingham, he's got a little, you know, but Waitrose.
And she spent 13 years in Haworth in West Yorkshire, where she went to do some Bronte writing, and still remains her second home, and she has family there, and your eldest is a Haworth boy. So Nicola is a rom-com superstar. She is the author of a dozen romantic comedies, all that have appeared in the Kindle bestseller charts. 2 have won the awards at the Festival of Romance, and another one was named ebook of the week in the Sun. And the corner, sorry, I've got my full stops there. The Corner Shop at Cockleberry Bay became the first best-selling Kindle book in the UK across all genres. And in 2019, it was Amazon's 3rd best-selling novel of the year. She lives near Ascot Racecourt with her black and white rescue cat, Stan. Oh, is that who you were feeding, Stan?
Yeah.
And Kim, lovely Kim, lives in Staffordshire with her son, Ollie, and her dog, Ronnie, and is a PR and social media manager for, I'm never going to know if I can say this right, Kim, is it Bookature?
Sure, it is, yeah.
It's like couture, but books. Yes.
Yeah.
And is a book blogger at kimthebookworm.co.uk. Kim won the Romantic Novelist Award for Media Star of the Year in 2016, and she is now quite delighted to be a member of the RNA. When she's not working or writing or being busy, because she does a lot, she can be found walking her dog, reading and shouting on the side of the football pitch for her son Ollie. And she also has her own Facebook Live, which is on Tuesdays at 8 p.m, so after us. So she will be doing one of those straight after this. So if you can join Kim on there, you can. So I am really, really excited to have all 3 of you here this evening. 3 of the best known women fiction writers in the UK. Thank you so much for joining us. And you all know each other, don't you? And you have done for some years through publishing and blogging. How long have you known each other?
Forever, wasn't it? It's just like, I don't know. It was just...
Well, I've been blogging for about 11 years, and that was when I first met you, Millie, online, when I first started blogging, because I read your book, A Spring Affair, and kind of got chatting to you, and said I was thinking about setting up a blog, and you encouraged me and inspired me to do it. And if it wasn't for you, and I always tell this story, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be where I am in publishing today.
Oh, that's lovely.
Job I didn't ignore you then, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd have been really slagging you off now.
Yeah, about the same time in about 2011, I decided to self-publish. So I kind of went to Millie for some advice as well, and we've stayed in touch ever since, sort of asking each other questions.
Yeah, but I've got to say this. When Nick said that, I said, "Why are you self-publishing? You know, go down the traditional route, you know." And she just taught me. She came to me for advice, and she didn't get any. But my goodness, what she taught me was far more valuable. I mean, she is an absolute dynamo you know,
Thank
a powerhouse.
Well, we'll talk about that later, because I'm intrigued to your sort of journey into publishing, Nicola, because it's slightly different than the others, and also you're, yeah, like you say, you've done a lot of it yourself, so it's really inspirational, I think, for anybody who's sort of listening. And so a question for you all. You all write about life, don't you? So whether it's about moving to a new village, escaping to find yourself, overcoming big life events, lots of people will use your book, to escape their own lives, especially at the moment. Is that important when you start to think about your book? And what sort of part of that is you cover sometimes difficult subjects, and actually in all of your books there are difficult subjects that you broach. And is that more of a challenge to incorporate in a sort of an uplifting novel? And Millie first.
Well, I'll be honest with you. It was a shocker to me that people actually used our books as a template for their own lives, because we just went out to write a story, and then you get people who said, "I did what this woman in this book did," you know, and so it's like, oh goodness, with great power comes great responsibility, you know, and which is lovely. It's very uplifting to hear that people have followed the characters, a fictional character, and changed their own lives. As far as the dark side and the real life, I write from real life, so life is full of darkness as well as light, and the darker I go, the more that I will inject it with lightness to offset it. And the big, even though I write from life, at the end I'm going to give a fictional twist, because in life, you know, it doesn't always happen that everybody gets the happy ending. But in fiction, that's what I want, because I don't want to leave people with the thought that I've dragged all these characters through all sorts of things, and then at the end, you know, I've not given them the ending that they were expecting. And I think you have to leave, well, I certainly have to leave my readers with a very hopeful end.
Are you the same, Kim? Are you sort of?
Yeah, very much. And I'll go back to when I first met Millie. You know, I read A Spring Affair, and the reason I got in touch with Millie is because what had happened to the character in the book had really resonated with me. And I wrote to Millie, because it said at the beginning of her book, if you've enjoyed it, write to me. And I thought, well, I'm going to write to her, but she's an author, she's never going to reply. And within an hour, she'd written back to me, and I'll never forget her words. And she said, "You lady are the reason I write books."
Oh.
You know, and I think it's been lovely, certainly through the last couple of years with everything that we've all been going through. I think it's nice for people to kind of escape into our books. And like Millie says, you know, we do have characters that have very realistic lives. They have things happen to them. And it's about their journey, and you know how they, I think for me as well, my characters, they change a lot on their journey, and they, you know, I do like a happy ever after, I do like a happy ending, but they're actually happy on their own. They don't need somebody else to make them happy. But the lovely gorgeous man that comes to the end of it is kind of the icing on the cake, rather than that you need that man to make you happy, which is kind of how I think a lot of people are in real life as well.
What about you, Nicola?
I agree. I mean, I suffered grief at a young age, and I also suffered a bereavement where I lost twins. And I actually wrote the SW19 Club, which was basically about a lady who suffered a similar thing as me, but she sets up a club on Wimbledon Common to help people with fertility issues. And again, I was on the receiving end of some beautiful letters who said, "You turned this really sad topic into a light-hearted issue that I could discuss with my partner, and thank you, you've helped me grieve." So yeah, it was cathartic for me to write, but amazing for me to help people as well. And I also think, I mean, we're kind of a similar age as well. I didn't start writing until my early 30s. And I think the fact you can put life experience into books really works. And I think the reader must feel that, because you have experienced so much more.
Yeah, definitely. And I think people, you know, working in a library, you realise the importance of books to people, and how much they do resonate with people, whether it's fiction and depending on what type of fiction as well. it does make a huge difference, and people become very invested, don't they, in your characters, and particularly if they have a sort of connection. What made you write this genre, you know, the genre that you write, and is there any other sort of genres that you'd like to dabble with? You know, have you got a sort of a crime fixation, or you know, you'd like to write a bonk buster, or something, you know, I don't know, fantasy or anything? Yeah, is there anything, or are you happy with what you do? Kim?
Sorry, my dog's just decided to squeak his toy then.
Oh, sorry, did you hear?
Yeah, I love reading rom-coms. I love A Happy Ever After, as I said earlier. Nicola, I didn't mention earlier, Nicola is also an author that I started reading in my very early blogging days, and that's kind of how I got to know Nicola along the way, and we've obviously become very good friends since as well. And I love the sort of books that Millie and Nicola write. They're the sort of books that I would pick up off the shelves and read, and they're the sort of books that I just love to write as well.
Good, yeah. I mean, I love reading them as well. And Millie?
I think it was just a natural thing for me to go into that that genre. I never really thought about it. It was just me. But however, I am writing a crime book, but it's turning out to be there's less murders in my crime book than there are in my contemporaries. I wanted a very different voice, but it's not turned out like that. And I kind of like the cozy crime, because I like writing what I do. I like,
yeah.
I love the dynamics between people, and the dialogue, and the laughs that you can have, and the tensions, and so I'd be a fool not to carry on doing that. So I've just taken kind of one step out of my arena, and I'm doing that. But I don't think I'll be. I did try and write a bonk buster once, when it was the 50 Shades of Grey and everybody was cashing in, and kind of sent a bit to my editor, who kind of, I got the emoticon version of oof on it. And then I thought, forget that. Even I caught sight of myself when I was writing it, and I was going, like, not me. So you find your natural genre, and bonk busters was not it.
What about you, Nicola? Did you always know?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of fell into it. I guess I've got a bit of a funny bone, so I kind of just started writing it and enjoyed it. But I did think I might veer off to crime, because I've got a bit of cozy crime in the Cockleberries and in the current Fairy Lane book I'm writing. But I'm actually a judge on the Amazon Storyteller Award at the moment, so I'm currently reading 5 books. 2 of them are crime, and I've enjoyed reading it. But when it gets to the gory bit and how they've been killed, I don't like it. I don't think I could write it. So again, a bit really, I've swerved off it a bit.
It's interesting, because I interviewed Helen Fields quite a long time ago, and she was sort of saying that she thought about writing a romance, but she said that the complete opposite to you was that if she wrote a romance, it would have too many murders in it, so it wouldn't be really much of a romance. So I think you do obviously get used to and quite comfortable with what you write, and that's your voice, I guess. And I guess some people can sort of swap, but if you like what you do, then that's really good, isn't it? So the questions are, like, I knew this would happen because you've got lots of fans, so I'm going to read some. So Lindsay said she'd like to know your inspirations and favourite authors. Yeah, well, actually, do you want to say what they might be?
Yeah, shall I start?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Actually, Millie was one of my inspirations. The Yorkshire Pudding Club, I absolutely loved it, and I still think it's one of my favourite rom-coms. And Carol Matthews was huge for me, but I think from even before Millie, it was Marian Keyes. And I said out loud, I'd love to be able to write like this woman. So, yeah.
And again, Millie, Nicola, which is why it's such a pleasure for me to be sat here as a writer now, talking to these people. Carol Matthews, again, I was a huge fan of, the early days of sort of Lisa Jewell, Jane Green, I was a huge fan of. And before that, probably people like Maeve Binchy. I grew up reading great big thick Danielle Steele books and crying my heart out at those for night time. But I haven't read one of hers for ages. I probably should try another one. But yeah, those sort of rom-com writers are the sort of people that I've always been picking their books up for years.
She's prolific. I mean, when we shelved like in the library, she's still like, I mean, she must be sort of 70s or maybe even 80s now, and she's still putting out like one a year. So
wow.
And she's also got about 300 children as well, hasn't she? Maybe not quite that many, but a few.
What about you, Millie? Who are your sort of inspirations and favourites?
I was a big Katherine Cookson reader when I was younger, because even though I don't write sagas, it was a woman from the north. It was a woman from the north who had embraced that. But when I wanted to start writing, it was all chick lit stuff. It was all kind of set down in London, 20-something, sharing a flat, working in PR. That was not a world that meant anything to me at all. It wasn't relevant. But Katherine Cookson was, because she embraced her northernness. Also, she was a woman as well, writing in a very male-orientated world. And she didn't start writing and properly, published. I think she was about 44. And I was 40 when I kind of got a deal. But you tend to think when you see people like Cecilia Ahern who are getting deals at 21, oh crikey, I've left this too late. So thank goodness for Katherine Cookson, because there was somebody else who had started later on, and my goodness, she didn't do too bad a job at starting in her 40s. I'm about 121 million books behind her, but I'm working on it.
I hadn't realised that she was. I mean, she always seemed older, but I hadn't realised that she was sort of in her mid-40s, because like you say, she has got so many books, so she must have been fairly prolific when she started. Or I've actually had a big back catalogue that she churned out that she'd been hiding.
And Helen Fielding, of course, because I read that diary. And I thought, goodness, I can relate to this. It was this woman who was obsessing about her weight and things. It was brilliant. And you do get a book that just sets you alight inside. And that was because she was writing contemporary books. And that's where I wanted to be. But woof, it was like a touch. It was a flame to the touch paper with that book for me.
That's amazing. Linda, who's another blogger, Linda Hill, we probably all know Linda. She'd like to know, has writing ever been cathartic? And I think, Nicola, you did touch on that, didn't you?
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said there.
Sorry, I said, has writing been cathartic? And you sort of said that when you wrote your book. Yeah. Totally.
In many books, definitely. Really, really. So, like I said, the twins and Corner Shop in Cockbury Bay is based actually on Rosa Larkin, who was a foster child. I wasn't fostered, but I lost my mum at a young age, and I powered myself through Rosa, and they've been my best-selling books, and I really do think that's helped actually, because she fought to get where she was, kind of thing.
And Kim?
Yeah, definitely for me. Certainly with my first book, which was called Amazing Grace. It was about a mum she'd split up with her husband. She got a young son, and she was grieving the loss of her mum and trying to just sort of navigate life without her mum in it. And it was something that I had gone through. I started writing when my mum died, actually. And I kind of wrote my feelings down to get rid of them, because I felt like I couldn't talk to my sister about how I really felt, because I didn't want to upset her, and I didn't want my dad to know how I felt, and we were all trying to just cope without upsetting everybody else. So I kind of wrote down how I was feeling, just to kind of get my feelings out, really. And that's kind of where the start of Amazing Grace came from. And I started writing about what I thought my mum would say to me if she was still around. And that's where it came. That's kind of where the inspiration from Amazing Grace came from.
And it's a lovely book.
Thank you.
It's really moving. And Millie, has that happened to you as well? Do you do that?
Very much so, right from the first, and different things that have gone on through my life. Spring Affair was about my own divorce and clearing out all the clutter in my life. all of them, more. Some more than others, like I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day. I wrote that just after my dad had died. But I needed something to cheer me up.
Yeah.
I needed to write a book that had some issues that, like with my dad, he wanted to talk about, you know, where his will was and everything. No, I can't do it. And there's a massive scene in that book where it's almost like you're rewriting your history, you know. And the latest one, The Woman in the Middle, it's all about a woman in a sandwich generation, probably my most autobiographical book on the planet, because I'm living it, never mind just writing it and promoting it. But, you know, yes, but, you know, we put a lot in. We put a lot of ourselves into every books. They are our babies, you know,
yeah,
they're
definitely.
our souls in the pages.
And actually, while we're talking about your books, shall we have a little sort of round robin of your latest one, so we can all sort of wiggle them? And who should we start? Do you want to start with yours, Kim? Have you got yours in front of you?
Ta-da! I have.
Moonlight.
It's called Moonlight over Muddlefoot Cove. It's set in a fictional village called Muddlefoot, which is in Dorset, which is actually based upon a real village called Muddyford in Dorset, which is somewhere that I used to spend a lot of my childhood years, where we used to go with the family. My auntie lived down there. Mum and Dad had Dad had a butcher shop. So we didn't have many holidays because Dad had always got to run the shop. And we used to go down to Muddyford with my nan. We used to go and stop at her sister's house. And bizarrely, I just have to tell you this story. This year, I took my son to Muddyford. And we went and had a look round, and I had a book with me, and I just felt the need to give the book to the person who lived in the house. So we went to the house, and I knocked on the door of the house, and this lovely man came to the door, and I said, "This is going to be the most random knock on your door that you've ever had in your life, but I've written a book, it's kind of about this house, and I'd love you to have it." And he was like, "Oh, okay." So I got talking to him, told him that it had been years since we'd been in, and he said those wonderful words, "Would you like to come in and have a look round?"
Oh,
Like, oh my God, really? So yeah, we went in and had a look round in this house, and worked out when I came out it had been 38 years, probably about 38 years since we'd been in the house. And it was just lovely. So to kind of go back to, you know, to writing about the house, and then to sort of come full circle and take a copy, and the thought that this book is actually in that house is just amazing to me.
that is amazing. What a lovely story. And Nicola.
Okay, so I was self-published. So I've now got a new trilogy out with Hodder and Stoughton, because I have got a traditional publisher. And Welcome to Fairy Market is the first in the trilogy that was out in July. And basically it's based in Cornwall in a made-up village called Hartmouth, which I kind of base around Dartmouth in Devon, because I love all the South Hams. And yeah, I think actually my Cocklebury Bay books are all Devon, but yeah, this is Cornwall. And each of the books, the three of them, are based on a different stallholder. So this one is Cara the Florist, who's had quite a normal life, hasn't really travelled because she's looking after her dad, and then she gets a mystery postcard that actually sends her off to New York, Barcelona and Australia, and her life really changes, and it's like, should she be away or should she be back where her heart lies in Hartmouth? And my dad is 84 and he is still commissioned to do the covers, even though I'm now with a huge publisher, which is very sweet. And he's laughing because he's said, I hope I stay alive long enough to do the third one. But he's done the second one. This one's out in November.
Oh, that one's lovely, isn't it? It's lovely.
And Starry Skies. And the third one's out in April. But he finished the cover this week, so he's quite happy.
Oh, bless. Millie, yours. I have got two of Millie's because I've just sent them. So I've got your two on Kindle. So I'll have to wait. I'll waggle this one as well so that we can see it.
I love the colour.
I know, it's lovely, isn't it? It's very autumnal.
It's set in South Yorkshire, as most of my books are. It's a very strong Yorkshire connection. It's about a woman who is a woman in the middle. She has elderly parents who are very fragile, and the more she tries to kind of stick bits back on them, the more effort it takes, and the more knackered she is. She's got two adult children who are actually young people still in need of guidance, and it's all about she can't let them go yet. She can't, and she can see all the trouble is with kids. You've garnered all this experience that you want to give them to them, and they will only get the experience by doing it themselves and making their own mistakes. Very difficult to stand back. And so it's all about the sandwich generation, which I'm hoping will resonate with a lot of us sandwich women out there who try and do it all and beat ourselves up because we never can do it all, and all we can focus in is all the stuff that we've missed and not actually the stuff that that we have done. But it's my parents' diaries. Well, my diary with my parents in at one point was, I thought they need a PA. It was just mum, dentist, dad, chiropodist, and then somewhere in there I managed to launch a book. But it's love and duty, and you just do it. And my dad's gone now. I would give anything for him to be back and for me to be ferrying him about and doing this and that for them. But it's just what you do for your families. So it's all about the sandwich generation.
Oh, sounds
Actually, that's lovely. And I love Shay. She was amazing, and she, like you said, she was balancing everything. She's got so many different plates, hasn't she, going on? And she's sort of into her and her husband Bruce is a bit useless, isn't he, really? I won't give too much away because they've slipped which happens, you slip into the traditional roles. Mows the lawn once a month, and the woman does everything else. He can come in at night and kick his shoes off. She's still doing everything, and that even in this age of equality, it happens. Do you become very attached to your characters? And you said that this one's probably the sort of quite a lot of you in it. Is that difficult when you're writing them, because you feel quite personally attached to them?
You do. We all do. I think that's why certainly I started bringing them back and putting them in another book, because when you finish writing the book and you have to, it's like leaving old friends behind, because you've invested so much. You've built these people up from clay, from the ground, and you've fallen in love with them, even the horrible ones. You've enjoyed them. And you do get very, very attached, like real people.
And you've done that, Nicola, haven't you, in your book? So you've written the 2 series.
Yes.
Because you love to return to those characters, or was that always your plan in the beginning?
Well, I wrote The Corner Shop in Cocker Bay as a standalone, and then it did so well and sold over 300,000 copies. I then thought I better write some more. And then, I loved the characters. So I kept Rosa as the main one for the Cocker Bay series. But this one, it's a bit different because there's a different heroine for the 3 books. But I bring in the other back characters just really gently. So the readers know what's going on right to the end with them. So I also wanted to add with this one, I've just gifted 50 to Libraries Unlimited. So they should be coming to everybody's libraries.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. That's really kind.
Okay. I mean, I did it when I was self-published with the Cockleberries. I just wanted to give it back, but Hodder allowed me to do it, so I was happy.
Thank you. I'm sure that all the readers who are listening on the libraries will be very pleased to hear that.
Good.
And Kim, you are a very busy lady. You work and you do your own Facebook Lives and you write. How do you find the time to do all of that and still stay sane?
Well, the staying sane bit is probably the bit I fail with, to be honest. I just think if it's something that you want to do, you'll find the time to do it. And next weekend I'm going away. In fact, this weekend coming up, I'm going away on Thursday. I'm going away till Sunday to do some writing. So to me, I'm the bossy one when we go on our writing retreats, because everybody else will be kind of sitting there having a nice cup of tea and a chat because they haven't seen anybody from ages, and I'm kind of going, right, I've taken 4 days here and I'm going to write, so you all need to shut up and just get writing. So I am a binge writer, definitely, but I also my son's dad has him every other weekend, so I try to write those weekends where I can. But I'm not very good at that either. I'm a big procrastinator, I have to say. Quite
often me and Kim are on the phone saying, are you writing?
How many words have you done today? And we're going, let's look at Adam Peaty instead.
I've got it's I'm looking at the timeline on the chat, and we've got Jessica Redlin, author, is saying hello to everybody, and I just did a little bit of fangirling because I just saw that Heidi Swain had just popped up, and I love Heidi's books. So Heidi said, such an incredible read, Millie. I devoured it in over a weekend, and it spoke to me on so many levels. So that's lovely, really lovely. I know, it's so exciting. And I've got somebody saying they love the dog photo bombing.
I know. Did you see him? I was trying to go like this so that you couldn't see him. He was like in on the settee at the back, and he was just turning around. Sorry.
They obviously like that. So Sally said it's absolutely lovely to see all of you, especially for me seeing Kim on the author side of a chat for a change. That's Sally Ward.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, that's lovely. And Karen says, Millie, she's pre-ordered your book. She lives with her 76-year-old mum who needs a lot of care, and her 9-year-old son, so she can really relate to that, to the woman in the middle. And Nikki says, can't wait, Nicola, have your new book pre-ordered.
Oh, thank you.
So Karen has also said it's so good to find romance novels and rom-coms with older characters, as she can't relate to a story about someone in their 20s when she's in her 50s. So I think we all probably resonate with that one, I think. And I think that's why your books, I think it is great. It's nice to read occasionally books about sort of 20 somethings and things, but I think it's easier, isn't it, when you're a woman of a certain age, like we all are, that you want to read about something that's happening to you and experiences that you can empathize with. So Nicola, I was going to ask you about your sort of journey into publishing, because you did self-publish, I believe, and then you had a huge success with bestsellers on Kindle. And now you have got a traditional publisher with Hodder. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I decided to self-publish in 2011. I tried the traditional. I actually had an agent, Pollinger, and they sent me around to everybody. And it was in the early 2000s when it was Bridget Jonesy time, and I didn't get a hook. And I thought, I'll just keep writing. And then self-publishing became a bit more accessible in 2011. So yeah, I set up all my social media profiles, and I just literally, and it was very sadly the year that I had lost my babies and split with my partner. So my books did literally become my babies. So I threw my heart and soul into promotion. But it wasn't, it was a few years. And then I got noticed by Accent Press, who took me on for a 7-book deal. But it was kind of, I thought I was going to sort of do really well with a publisher, but I was doing better myself. So I left Accent. And then, suddenly the corner shop. It was my 9th book. So hope to everyone who's writing. I just didn't give up. I always had this dream that I'd be a #1 bestseller. And the corner shop in Cockery Bay suddenly just took off after about 7 months on Amazon and started selling 2,000 a day. And I kept ringing my sister saying, I'm not sure if this is right, because I checked my dashboard and it was like, oh my God. And it got to #1. And I think I just kept going. I think it was a combination of hard work and just the subject matter clicking at the right time, to be honest. And then the other books sort of came out and were out through COVID doing really well. And that's when Hodder noticed me, and they approached my foreign rights agent, and I wasn't even looking for a traditional publisher, but they kind of dangled a carrot, and I thought, I'm just going to add it to my sort of repertoire. So I keep my self-published books, and I look at Hodder as another business side, and I do audiobooks myself. So I'm kind of a hybrid author now. But it's interesting. It's great having a publisher because they take some of the strain, but I'm still thinking, oh no, I want to change the price, or I want to do this or that. I find it quite hard not being in control, being honest.
Yeah. And Kim, were you traditionally published? You were published, was it Hera your first?
Yeah, my first books were with Hera Books. But I think for me, working for a publisher, a bit like Nicola probably, I think I must have been their nightmare author, because I think I must have just been going, well, why don't we do this, and why don't we do that, and why don't we do this? And then I just kind of worked out that at that point I was a complete and utter control freak, and I wanted to be able to do those things for myself. So I self-published my last 2. Not to say if there's any publishers out there that would like to offer me a very big advance that I would turn.
I'm sure everybody's watching tonight. It's really busy, so you know, I'm sure everybody in the publishing world is here looking. And Millie, were you traditionally sort of published? Were you sort of books or?
Went down the traditional route. It took me a long time. I chased the agent I wanted for about 15 years. Because I knew what I knew I wanted to write, but I didn't know what I wanted to write. So I eventually kind of embraced my northernness and the extraordinary things that happen within the parameters of ordinary life, which is where, you know, what I write about. But it suited me very well, the traditional side. Yeah. You know, I'm doing all right. They built me very slowly and gradually. I've been lifted up on the shoulders of local people. So it's been a slow burn, but then when it took off, it took off really well. And it worked for me. You know, we all have different paths and they've all worked for us.
Yeah.
If the bottom fell out of my world tomorrow and I was dropped by a traditional publisher, I would, you know, my career would not be over. No. I would go to self-publishing. When I started off, it was like traditional, and self-publishing was just bubbling up in the background. And it was like if you were dropped by a traditional publisher, you know, maybe that was it. So it's wonderful to know that, you know, if I ever got dropped, that I'd have a chance at still having a career. Because I enjoy that. I enjoy it. And Nicola, I know she gets off on all that kind of doing the deals and organising the covers, etc. Because, you know, it's not so very different. You still get an editor. If you do it properly, you'd still employ an editor, a freelance who works also. You know, my editor is a freelance and she works with the publisher, but also if somebody else wanted to hire her outside. So there's not that much difference. No. Except I hand over more dosh, I think. I'll say that because I enjoy just writing the books and letting somebody else do the marketing and all that. But, you know, if Nicola will get off on it more than I would, I think I'm just too, I like to just write the books and that's it.
Yeah, and I haven't had children like Kim or Millie. I've had, I guess, more time to be selfishly focusing on it and lock myself away to write and to promote. So I've had a kind of different life altogether, really.
It's really interesting though how, you know, all three of you have had different experiences, but you're all, you know, that you're all, you know, you all have books out there and books that people are reading. So it just really shows that you can, you know, you can go into it in so many different ways now, whereas it used to be, I guess, it was traditional or nothing, wasn't it? So
I will add to that, ultimately the reader doesn't care who's published us. They wouldn't care if you literally, whoever it is. So it only matters to us in a way. They like the book. So,
and I think it's, if you don't mind me saying as well, I think it's you know, it's really nice to have seen people like Nicola self-publish really successfully, for it now to become a viable option for people. You know, and there used to be a lot of sort of snobbery around self-publishing, and the reason, you know, that's gone, and people like people have worked. There is, but you've worked so hard at trying to get rid of some of that as well.
Yeah,
I think you know, sort of ebooks and you know, people are so, you know, there are sort of, you know, there's so many imprints now, aren't they, that are just digital as well, that I think that makes it easier as well. And like you say, people don't really take any notice of who the publisher is on a sort of, if you're buying it on a Kindle or something. So it's
What I did do though is champion. There were never charts for ebooks for self-published people in the bookseller. It was always for publishers and books $1.99 or more. And so I went on to Radio 4 and I said it was an injustice that everyone should be able to see everyone's work. And along with the bookseller, that's actually changed now. So they have a book stat chart every week.
Great, well done.
I like to champion the indies.
Well done, you. I've got the questions are coming in faster than I can read them. So Zoe said she's so excited to see female authors talk together and talk about their writing and their lives. Millie, I adore your books and I've always particularly related to Eve. And I'm so grateful that you bring back your old characters into your book. And I'll be looking out for Nicola and Kim's book because they all sound so good. So that's brilliant. Jessica says, Jessica Redland, who's another author,
Oh, yeah.
said, what's the best bit about being an author and what's the most challenging? So who would like to kick off for that one? Kim?
I don't mind jumping in first. The best bit for me is to get those letters from people, or those emails or Facebook messages that say that your book's made a difference, or it's made somebody happy, it's cheered their mum up. They can really resonate with the story. So I think that for me is the bit that I love the most, just getting that feedback back from real people. And my son always keeps it really real for me, because when I say, oh, I've had a lovely message about my book, and he'll go, is it somebody you know though? So he likes to keep it real. I know, but challenging, I think for me the challenge is trying to fit in the writing around working full time.
Yeah, that must be a real challenge. I really take my hat off to you to be able to do that. Nicola?
I think it's the same thing for both of me. I love the fact I can work from home and be flexible. So if I wanted to take a morning or day off, I can. But also the detriment is I feel I never, ever take time off. So next week I've allocated a week off, actually, where I'm not going to do anything. And yeah, but I mean, I love it. I'm blessed to write full time now. And I think the flexibility is amazing.
Millie?
Best thing about it is with this job, you never know what's around the corner. Some magic email might come, or a foreign deal or whatever. It's every day starts off with, you know, the possibility that Spielberg has read your book and wants to turn it into a film. And again, you know, it's like being queen of your own castle. You can you can take time off, or just like Nick says, we don't, you know, because we are workaholics, and it can be quite difficult to live with a writer, because my other half will say to me, you haven't listened to a word I'm saying, have you? I'm looking at him, and he's talking to me, and I'm thinking about a plot that's sorted, and so it can be a bit immersive, but you know, I'm not mourning. I love what I do. I'm blessed.
Amazing. I'm very conscious of the time, Kim, because I know you have to go off and do your
I'm fine till I'm just fine, don't worry.
So a couple of quick questions, so we'll go around quickly. So what do you like to read for pleasure, and have you read anything recently that you would recommend? I know we did already talk about this slightly, but have you got anything that you'd like to recommend to the people listening and watching this evening?
I'll kick this one off. I like crime, no surprise there. And I've read this, it was a belter. Nikki French, House of Correction. It's about a woman who is, she's had a few problems, you know, a few mental problems, and she is found at the side of a dead body in her house, and she's arrested for it, and her solicitor wants her to take a plea bargain, and she says, I'm not guilty. She's 99% sure that she's not guilty. And so she, without knowing anything about the legal system whatsoever, she decides to do her own defense in court. I found it absolutely fascinating. I love Nikki French. Anyway, I've read everything that they have ever done, but this one in particular, I thought I couldn't put it down. And then I had that book hangover thing where you think,
oh, that's awful, isn't it? A book hangover.
It's a belter, House of Correction. Loved it.
Yeah, we had them on a couple of weeks ago with their new book, The Unheard, and the way they write is fascinating. Absolutely.
They do that, you know. They do, and how.
Nicola?
Like I said, I'm actually being a judge for the Storyteller Award at the moment, so I've got 5 books to read in 5 days, and I'm just going to flash up 3. I've got to be impartial, but I like all 3 of these. So it's Crime, Rachel McLean, Corfe Castle Murders. And then I've got An Isolated Incident by J.D. Kirk, and he's written actually there's 12 in this series. Again, the first crime books I've ever read, but I've enjoyed them. And then something really bizarre is a Regency romance, A Stranger at the Villa. From the cover, I would never pick that up, but I thoroughly enjoyed that. So really quite bodice-ripping, Bridgerton type book. So yeah, they're all indie books, and I can recommend all of those.
Oh, fantastic. I found great. And Kim?
The one that I've read recently, it's actually a Booker book, but it's by an author called Shari J. Ryan, and it's called The Bookseller of Dachau. and it's set in World War II, and it's a young girl called Matilda, who's around about 16, and her best friend Hans. She didn't kind of work out that she actually really loved him. She just thought they were best friends, and then they kind of discovered that they were madly in love. And then he was taken away by the Nazis. Well, he was taken away first to go and live elsewhere because they took all the Jews away. He was from a Jewish family, and then she hid him in her attic,
Oh, wow.
and literally sort of looked after him while he was there. And then something happened, and her family actually gave her up and told the Nazis that she was hiding this guy. And it's all about their it's about this epic love story, and it's just incredible, and how that she just never gave up hope for ever seeing him again. Wonderful book.
Amazing. That sounds really moving. So we are nearly at the end. I'm just going to go through a few questions. So lovely Ian Wilford, another face on Twitter.
We love Ian.
Yeah, he's lovely, isn't he? Such a support. All selling fabulous books, he says. And just looking through to see if anybody else. Jessica asked another question, which is probably when we'll finish on, is and I know that it's going to be a one that you're all going to groan at, because I know I've asked it before, which is of all the books you've written, which is your favourite? This is like asking about,
Which is your favourite kid?
Yeah.
It's easy for me because I've only actually written 4, so I'm going to go first with this one. Amazing Grace is probably the most personal to me, with what I talked about earlier on, and it being a lot about my mum, but I also really enjoyed writing Sunshine and Second Chances, because it's about 4 50-year-old women who go on holiday, and they all have the same problems that, us 50-year-old or 50-ish year old women have these days, with the hot sweats, and they're not remembering anything, and all the sorts of things that go on, and they talk about things, and they're not kind of happy in their life, but together. It was a book I wrote about what happens when you put strong women together, and how they inspire each other and motivate each other, and they just want them all to be, the best versions of themselves they could be. And so I think that one was really special for me too.
Oh, that's lovely. And it's a bit like tonight, because you all obviously get inspiration and support from each other as well. So I think that's really lovely. I think the writing community is very supportive of each other, aren't they? So
yeah.
Incredible. Nicola, do you have a favourite?
So yeah, I really love Working It Out, which is about Ruby Matthews, who does 12 jobs in 12 months to find the one of her dreams. And it was my first self-published book, which I actually sent to Hodder nearly 20 years ago. And an editor who now works for Kim, she sent me a letter saying, I hope this isn't a big mistake turning you down. And that gave me the power in my mind to think, if Hodder are nearly taking me on, I know I'm good enough. And also Scott Pack, who's ex-HarperCollins, he just said this book is great, and it just gave me the confidence to carry on, and I still love it.
Amazing. 20 years, that's a long time, isn't it, to be like sending, but
yeah, I always say to people, it's taken me 28 years to be an overnight success. When people say, oh look, she's done well, I think, oh, it's taken a long time.
Millie, do you have a favourite?
Well, the last couple, I would have to, because my head is still full of my woman in the middle. I'm still in the zone. If you held a gun at my head and said which one, I think I would probably pick the Christmas one. I wish it could be Christmas every day. The one that's coming out is paperback next month. And for the reasons that I told you about, it was written after my dad had died. I just needed somewhere to put everything that was in my heart. And it was very different for me. It was a very small cast. Usually they've got the cast of Ben-Hur, just a small cast of people. And so the dialogue had to be very tight. It was almost like a play. It was like no other book I've ever written, but I kind of needed to write it. And I do love the book very, very much. And I think for all sorts of reasons, I crammed it full of, there's only reindeers that are missing. There's everything Christmassy is in this book. And I was immersed in this lovely snowy world. And for once I was writing a Christmas book in the season, because we're usually writing out of season, where it's usually freezing there, writing summer books. when we've got, you know, fingers are dropping off from frostbite. So for all sorts of reasons, I think I wish it could be Christmas every day. It just pips it the post.
Millie, when's your Women in the Middle book out?
Next Thursday.
Oh wow, good.
So I'm in
Exciting.
full on promo mode.
Yeah, and
I should
yeah,
get it.
it is fantastic, and I loved all of your books, and I'm looking forward. I'm going to have a look at your back catalogues. I know I read the Christmas one, Millie, last year. I wish it could be Christmas every day, and I love that one. So that's a brilliant Christmas book if anybody wants a Christmas book. But I shall be definitely checking out your other books, Kim and Nicola, because they all sound absolutely fascinating. And yeah, thank you for joining us this evening. Our next in conversation is on Monday the 11th, and it's with author Sandy Jones, and she's going to be talking about her latest book, The Guilt Trip, which is a psychological thriller, which I love as well. So
can I just interrupt, Karen,
Yeah,
and just say
yes.
congratulations on your shortlisting today for the RNA Awards as well, for Librarian of the Year. That was amazing. Well done.
Oh, well done.
Oh, thank you. You're embarrassing me now, but thank you. And congratulations to you, Kim, as well, because you were nominated for Media and PR.
Media Star, yeah.
Media Star, yeah. So congratulations.
That's the only reason I mentioned it, to be honest.
Yeah. So yeah, so we're looking forward to so you're going to the party on the 28th. So
yes.
Yeah. Are you going, Millie?
No, because I'm in full on promo mode.
Oh, of course you are.
Hardback comes out, and then the month after, the paperback of the Christmas book comes out. So I've got like 6 weeks. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, and
yeah,
I just can't squeeze any more in.
No.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, ladies. And I'd love to be able to have you all to Exeter Library when we can all travel around the country again and have you all in person. Although we wouldn't be able to see your lovely backdrops of Millie's fantastic wallpaper, the fairy lights, and Nicola's books. But it would be lovely to see to have you at the library. And good luck with your books, and good luck with yours next week, Millie, and good luck with your books, Nicola and Kim. And I'll let you go, Kim, because I know you've got a dash over to do your own. So
I've got time to
thanks for having us.
onto mine. Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.